faster. Absolutely. Great stuff. Look, so let's move on to our next point in the interest of time. I guess our next talking point, what we want to understand is what works now in 2021 and why. Is it the approach, the sales approach? Is it technology? Is it a combination of both? We're also going to run our next poll. What I'd like to understand from the audience is what are your top 3 technologies that you're currently using as a seller, as a business owner, as an entrepreneur? Okay, so I'm going to start that poll now. 3, 2, 1. So if you can please be as engaging as possible, and we'll go through those results shortly. So I guess in my opinion, you've got to provide, and this goes to everything that Tony's been saying, we've got to provide value quickly and effectively to prospect clients. And we've got to make sure you have a compelling message that drives exactly where the benefits lie and how you will solve your prospects, potential issues or challenges, right? You need to reach them faster, right? You need to get contact details, mobile phone numbers, using tools such as Triggr. There's a number of tools, there's Zoom Info, there's Lucia. My personal preference, Triggr, will help you to reach executives on their mobile phone faster. With professionals working from home, the switchboard is becoming more redundant, in my opinion. And actually, when COVID hit, I remember trying to reach individuals on the switchboard. They couldn't even transfer people because they didn't have the technology for about 6 or 7 months to do that, right? And then once you reach them, as Tony said, we need to show compelling value, right? So you gather sales intelligence by using these tools, again, such as Triggr, to receive up-to-date intelligence on your target audience developments, new technologies, C-level movement, C-level publications, stuff that you can reference on your call, really, really important. And you need to automate the sales engine. You need to take advantage of AI tools and tools such as HubSpot Professional, HubSpot Sales, Salesforce CRM. There's so much out there, and I guess it can be confusing, hence why we're running a session like this to hopefully get an insight on what is the best approach, right, to get you started. And my personal example, I was looking at ways, as I mentioned, to automate my own sales engine, and I did invest in smart automation tools like HubSpot Professional. It took me a while to do it, but when I did it and when I signed up to Triggr, almost immediately I was able to offer better, compelling value to my clients. When I showcase these tools to my clients, they're blown away, and they want to know how their sales team can use those tools as well, right? So I'm meeting my ever-growing existing client needs and significantly modernizing the sales engine for another 5 years or 10 years even, right? Tony, what do you think? Did you agree? Is there anything you would add to that?
Yeah, before we talk about technology, the most important thing for sellers is to time block their day.
Okay.
The easiest thing to not do every day, and the thing that has no immediate consequences in not doing it every day, is prospecting, right? There's always other things that seem more important. Phone calls we need to return, admin tasks we need to do, get my expenses in, whatever those things are. So most sellers are busy doing enough to not feel guilty about their performance, rather than do what it actually takes to be successful. So everybody needs to reverse engineer their own metrics. They need to think about, okay, so I've got this annual or quarterly target. I've already closed X. I can see a path to Y. There's now a delta. Whatever your metrics are, let's say I need 3 times coverage, qualified pipeline coverage, to hit that number. So I need 3 times that in covering the delta. What's my average deal size? What are my ratios from calls to meetings, from meetings to being qualified, from qualified to proposal, all the way through to being able to close, and work out, how many calls I can make in an hour or combos I can execute, and then time block it. So the first thing is to time block. It's critically important. The next thing I'd really talk about is that we know that the cost of acquiring a new client is massively higher than retaining or growing existing clients. But more than that, we know that there's magic in referrals. So if we can monitor, or if we look at our entire customer base and monitor people that get promoted or move, we follow them into their new organization. We follow them up as they get promoted in the organization. Now, really interestingly, if you're just using, say, for example, LinkedIn or Sales Navigator to monitor for that, on average, people don't update LinkedIn for about a month and a half until after they've got the new job. So often there's already a big lag. But we want to follow supporters of ours into their new organization, because in essence, it's a referral and it's a trigger event that's combined. And it's truly a 1 + 1 = 5, right? Because you're beginning with a level of trust with someone you've already delivered for. The person that's hired them is typically wanting to back them. Any new senior person into a role has got about a 3 to 5 month window where their boss will approve most of the things they ask for. After that, they're another tired, broken person that's not delivering, for the senior manager, right? They get backed early. So if they go in and say, hey, I need this in my new role, I've worked with this organization in the previous company. You approve this, often they'll get it approved. A year later, they'll struggle. So trigger events and referrals combined together, fastest path, highest probability to selling, and top the activity every day.
That's a really good point, Tony. And I can relate that to my own business. Most of the best, I guess, the most prominent clients that I work with are from referrals, right? Quicker to bring on board, quicker to gain the trust. And a lot of people forget, and something that I wasn't doing until recently was calling up my clients and asking, what they like about working with me and asking for referrals. A lot of salespeople, I think, fail to go down that route and find out those sort of things. So Tony, but based on that, what do you think the future of selling looks like in your opinion? I know we've covered a few points in the other part of this session, but what's the future of selling for the next 10 years, in your opinion?
Well, Matt, the future of selling is automation and tech. So I might just touch on that. And Matt, just for everybody listening to this, we all know we need to ask for referrals, but using that phrase with a prospect is the kiss of death. Say, hey, would you be able to give me a referral? Because what they hear is, hey, can you introduce me to someone in your network that'll think that you introduced a seller to them, right? So we don't want to ask it that way. No one wants a seller pestering their friends. But what we can ask is, hey, who else in your network has been struggling or is struggling with the same things that you were, before we worked together? Who else in your network do you think could benefit from understanding what you've been able to do? So one of the really important things in selling is intent. We do not want to convey the intent that we want to make our sale. We want to convey the intent that we're all about helping the other person in their role, personally and professionally. We're all about trying to understand, hey, does a conversation even make sense? I don't want to waste your time. So we don't have commission breath when we're talking to people. So when we look at the future of selling, it's all about automation. So if we can automate the tracking, right, of referral opportunities and of things that go on in the marketplace that give us relevance and context, a reason in the eyes of and in the mind of the buyer for us having the conversation, right? Now we're plowing the field ahead of us and making our job much, much easier. So you can automate the monitoring of trigger events, is what I think is the most powerful thing, right? Obviously, there's all of the other workflow processes, web to lead processes. We can automate things like forecasting in CRM systems with AI. There's lots and lots of things. There's tools like Bombora, out there where we can assess buyer sentiment, right? Where we're dealing with organizations with higher propensity to buy. Often those things, they're already looking at competition, which is actually the problem with that. So strategic selling by definition means getting engaged earlier. So Tom, I might even throw to you to talk about how you can automate trigger events. It's so powerful.
Yeah, I mean, on the point of referrals as well, I was going to raise that point. Organizations should think about, in terms of referrals, what is one of the best referrals that you can get, and it's ideally going to be a happy customer of yours or someone that you've worked with before. So one of the trigger events that's most common and powerful and possible to actually set up is monitoring and tracking all of your existing customers inside your CRM or your power users or your champions, however you want to slice it, and then through that being notified whenever they change roles into your ideal customer profile. So there's kind of two approaches to that. One is how do you scale a way for you to track and monitor your existing customers, and then how do you get alerted when they land in the accounts that you actually care about? And in terms of trigger events, that's the no-brainer trigger event that I think every organization should be able to set up, unless you've just started your business and you don't have that install base to rely on. But all of these areas of changes within a business, any change in the status quo is what we would see it as. that's the opportunity for the rep to actually get in early, and you're not going to get caught into, you know, a race to the bottom of the price list. You know, if they're just going and filling out contact us forms to your 5 different competitors when you're in that buying mode. You still need to do that, but you're not going to get that 3x coverage if that's your only play.
Great stuff. Thank you, Thomas. That's very insightful. And me personally, using Triggr, that's what I've started doing at the moment, and I've really started seeing the results. Your technology is making my life much easier. So let's summarize. So Tony, you're right. We need to start blocking out our day, whether you're calling at 8 in the morning till 10 a.m. or 4 in the afternoon till 6 or both. We've really got to make sure that sales professionals have to be disciplined on that approach, blocking out the day on those activities. And look, the cost of acquiring new clients, as you mentioned, Tony, is extremely high compared to referrals, and 1 + 1 = 5, right, for the referrals that you're going to get. But don't ask directly straight out for a referral. I'm guilty of that. I have done that, and I think your approach works much better. I have to agree that you have to show value and how you're going to help that individual, how you're going to help someone in their network, as opposed to just asking straight out for a referral. Could be considered rude in some ways, I guess, if you do it the wrong way. And yeah, we've got to start automating technology. That's the future of sales, right? Automate Triggr events. And Thomas, what you've mentioned, automating your referrals, how cool is that? You can automate a segment of your client and target market in order to make sure that you automate and you're prepared and ready for when it's time to talk to them, or when they have a potential opportunity, and join them at the right cycle. So when you get them on the phone, that the cycle that they're in is the cycle for buying, right? Makes sense? Yeah. Okay, great. So look, the results of the poll are in. So we asked what the top 3 technologies that you use on a daily basis, and there's a little bit of each. LinkedIn Navigator and CRM are the top. So 68% are using this CRM, which is really good. CRM automation around 34%. But LinkedIn Navigator and CRM tech seem to be the 2 things that are used on a daily basis. I guess my personal view is, I guess CRM would be something that's being used for many, many years. LinkedIn Navigator, if you haven't got LinkedIn Navigator as a salesperson, I think there's a problem, whether you've got to pay for it yourself or your company pay for it. Tony, Thomas, have you got any views on that?
Those are the foundations of any rep. If you're not using your CRM, exactly, right? And you're not and you're not using LinkedIn, I'm not sure what you're doing. So no surprises there at all. Those are the foundations.
Yeah, and the thing that's typically missing for people is that sales intelligence data. So, you know, email addresses, phone numbers, but more importantly, the contextualized information. The big Achilles heel for most sellers is they spend way too much time trying to research, only to never get hold of the person anyway. So we need a way of doing pragmatic research that gives us the personalization. So we know that brevity and personalization is one of the key things in effective outreach, both on the phone and with emails. So tools that help with that.
Great stuff. And look, we're going to open up the question again. We're going to open up the chat for the audience. So if anyone has any questions, please throw away. We've already got one in. This is probably more from the other poll that we ran. So I've got so I can't see his name, but a chap from Melbourne who works for a startup AI tech company. He wants to know the best time to reach people. When is the best time to call? I guess, and obviously if you reach people on mobile phone numbers, is there a certain time that people should be calling? In my opinion, I think you should start reaching people at 8 in the morning onwards till about 10 a.m. and about 4 o'clock till about 6 o'clock. I even reach people when they're walking their dog, and they're actually quite receptacle. Some people not so much, but they're a little bit more relaxed. They're out of the work environment. Tony, you got your opinion on that? What's your view on that? Best time to reach individuals?
Yeah, so well, pre-COVID, the times of day that people traveled was the perfect time to be calling people. Yeah. Even if they're on public transport, they maybe wouldn't answer their phone on a train or a bus or subway, but they're there looking at their email, they're looking at LinkedIn, and the idea is you're making their device buzz and ding, and they'll look. Yeah, so typically lunchtimes are really powerful, shoulders of the day are most powerful. We don't want to be calling in evenings, invading people's personal life.
Sure.
And increasingly now people aren't traveling in the morning, but they're trying to get their kids set up for homeschooling or whatever they're doing. But I've had plenty of sellers say they phone somebody, the person says, look, I'm just doing the school run with the kids. Yeah. You know, can you call me back in 5 minutes? Like they're they're happy to take the call.
Yeah.
Hey, just to respond to a question or a comment that's come in from Stephen Cairns about the fact that he's just said that LinkedIn has no relevance for B2C. I just Stephen, maybe challenge that a little. You know, I know when I bought a motor vehicle, you know, I'm regarded as a B2C buyer, right? I'm not buying as a business. I'm just buying as a consumer. But I had a really good Lexus salesperson then engage me in LinkedIn. So a lot of B2C buyers, if they're white collar professionals, and if we look at the Australian market, for example, there's 9.5 million LinkedIn members. 2 people join LinkedIn a second worldwide. More than 90% of white collar professions in developed economies have got LinkedIn profiles. And even in government, it's becoming more common. And people are very open to being contacted in a business context in LinkedIn. Often they push back if you do it in a platform like Facebook. You know, they regard that as just for their family and personal life. They don't like sellers engaging in Facebook often, but they're more accepting of it in LinkedIn. So even if they engage in a B2C context and Facebook on those platforms, it's powerful to go to another channel, right, and see if you can engage them in something like LinkedIn. And everyone's different. Everyone will have a preferred channel. You don't know what it is until they respond to you on one of those channels.
Very good, Tony. I have to agree 100%. Okay, great. So I think we've got one more question that's come in. So what's the best intro message to get senior corporate managers to connect on LinkedIn? That's a really good question. Email, I don't really respond to many emails, funnily enough, unless there's a compelling message behind it. And I do believe that you do have to have the right messaging and again, do your research and use those trigger events and intelligence before writing them. What do you reckon, Tony? That's my view on it from my experience.
Okay, so the thing here is there's some rules in LinkedIn. Never connect and sell. So don't combine trying to give them a pitch with the process of getting them to accept your connection request. And you need to send a connection request that shows relevance in their mind. So if your connection request says, "Hey, Mike, huge fan of what your company's doing. Great to connect you on LinkedIn." It can really be that simple, right? What you don't want to do is, "Hey, Mike, we're the global market leader in XYZ." You know, think, "Oh, a seller that's, you know, trying to weasel their way into my life." So just separate connecting from selling. So just connect. You want to connect with all of the thought leaders in your industry. Think about where do my customers go to for information? Who do they respect? Go and connect yourself to all of them. So if you're going to connect yourself to a journalist or an analyst, you'd say, "Hey, Mike, huge fan of what you write. I share your reports regularly with my clients, or I share your content with my clients." They'll happily accept that connection request because you're promoting them. So there's a concept of, you know, we want to kind of marry up in life, associate ourselves with people of greater standing. So you want to do that in social as well. So build out your social proof or the quality of people, separate selling from connecting. So connect, then later provide a little bit of value. Say, "Hey, Mike, came across this report, thought it would be relevant, maybe to send that through," right? So definitely give it a week to 10 days before you start to try and sell to somebody in social.
Great stuff, Tony. Thank you. We've got another question in from John. What do you think of online tenders when the relationship aspect is not there, but the customer wants to provide level playing field to get a great solution? That's an interesting one. When I used to work for large tech companies, when it came to tenders, I always used to find you could tell if they were written for you or not. So we kind of used to respond based on that. I haven't got, I guess, a great deal of experience in that space, but I guess what's helped me in the past is actually having a relationship before the tenders are released, and that's not always possible. But I do try the sneaky approach of, "Hey, you know, who do I need to connect to and have that relationship with, so I can find out if that tender is going to be written for us or not, or if we're going to have, I guess, a higher priority." Tony, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, no, I'll throw to Tom. I'm sure he'll have a view of this as well.
Yeah, go for it, Thomas.
But a couple of things from me. The first thing is, there's no shortage of prospects in the market for us, right? That's the mindset we need. What there is a shortage of hours in the day within which we can execute. And the worst thing we can do is to waste our time pursuing things that go nowhere. And worse than that, dragging into that crazy person's pursuit the precious resources in our own organization. It damages our own brand and huge opportunity costs pursuing things that aren't going to convert to anything for the customer or us. So if you receive a tender that you knew nothing about, you need a bias to filing it in the shredder. right? So you think,
Yes.
look, I don't think I'm going to respond to this because I had no influence in it. Then you have a quick look and you look for the sticky, evil fingerprints of your competition in that document. So is there any bias, which we should all know, what our competitors will seek to put in there? And then, and if you see those, I would tend to qualify out again. And here's the real thing. Whenever you qualify any opportunity, a tender bid document or not, it's the degree to which the customer will share with us insider knowledge and give us access to other people that form the decision power base and consensus that determines whether you should keep going. If they won't give us insider information or they won't give us access to others, we're never going to win, right? Yep. And if you knew nothing about the document and you see bias toward a competitor, then just steer away from it. Tom, your thoughts?
Yeah, I 100% agree. Don't be shy in challenging a tender that gets sent through to you. And exactly as you said, you can usually see straight away that this has been a template that they've been given from a competitor or something like that. So scan through it, see for those certain little bits or requirements that are just a little too nuanced for it to be something that they would have come up with themselves. And then challenge them on that. There's some research that's come out recently in terms of how healthy is your deal, and it is how quickly the back and forth is between you and the customer. What's the velocity of email exchange? If they're not replying to you over long periods of time, it's not a good time. Whereas if they're really giving you those insights, as Tony said, but there's really high velocity in exchange of communication, then that's a sign of a healthier deal.
Hey, Matt, I'm just seeing some great comments here from people. I love what Peter Strokorb typed in a little while ago when we try and connect and sell. It's called pitch slapping. I really like that.
I love it.
It's great. I really like what Gunnar has said in here as well. This idea of attraction marketing is really powerful. If you can put up content online that attracts people, especially around trigger events, that go on in the marketplace, because something happens, it creates relevance. One of the things we should all be asking ourselves, whether we're a marketer or a seller, we need to ask ourselves this question: what do our customers search for online before they'd ever know to look for me? Right. So give you an example of this. The sport I do with my family is wakeboarding, and we got a bigger boat. Now, what that meant was that was a trigger event that meant we needed a bigger car to tow it because the current car wouldn't tow that boat. So that was actually a trigger event. But when I got online looking for new cars or four-wheel drives to tow the boat, I didn't search for any of the brands. I searched for 3,500 kilo towing capacity. To my shock and dismay, not one of the four-wheel drive manufacturers had content up online against that search term, right? They were all just narcissistically putting up content about, their Land Cruiser, their Patrol, whatever the four-wheel drive was. So we've got to think about, with attraction marketing, what are people looking for before they'd ever know to look for us? They'll typically search around their problem domain. There's another question here too about, what are the best tools or platforms out there for sourcing that sales intelligence data? Right. So there's probably one of the biggest companies in the world is Zoom Info that acquired Discover.org, and they're really good for North American data, far less so in Asia, and especially far less so in a place like Australia. Tom from the call is with Triggr. Trigger's got amazing ANZ data. So if you're in the Australia, New Zealand region, they've got amazing data, not just around buying intent, but also the phone numbers and email addresses. The recruiting industry tend to use a tool called Lucia. It tends to be pretty strong in Europe and good in other markets. But yeah, if you're in the Australian market, I'd probably recommend Triggr. If you're up in Asia, probably something like Lucia, probably.
Although, Tony, I personally noticed with Triggr, Singapore and Hong Kong, the data's getting much better. We do receive quite a few Triggr events for prospects in Singapore. And I've noticed mobile phone numbers are getting a lot more accurate in Southeast Asia. So it is certainly developing in other regions already outside of ANZ.
Loving the accolades, guys. Just to comment on that. So we launched Asia Data a couple of months ago, which is
cool,
exciting for us. It's it's great that we're now expanding the footprint in APAC, and it makes sense that you're seeing the improvement across those regions. The Triggr was launched 3 years ago with the focus on Australia, so that's really been the bread and butter of us.
Yeah.
recently expanding across APAC.
Great stuff. So I think just for the interest of time,